everyone, I'm Sarah Shewey. I am the founder and CEO of Happily, the largest and most diverse network of virtual event specialists in the United States. And every Wednesday at 2 p.m. PST, I come onto LinkedIn Live and YouTube Live and just have a conversation with a friend and a colleague about something that's happening in our world today. And I'm really excited. I'm really excited for our guest today, Chiriga Zoe Moore. And Chiriga is someone that, like, I have. I think Chiriga reached out to me at one point and said, like, I love what you're doing. I'm kind of doing something similar in Oakland, and I was like, yay! I can't wait to meet you. So. Chiriga, I just recently saw this video that she made for MPI. She's now the co-chair of MPI's Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Board. And I saw this video and I just wrote back to her immediately, like, yes, like more of this is so great to see her lifted up and in this place of leadership where she has always been in my mind. But we're going to talk a bit more today about diversity and inclusion in hiring within the event space and the struggles that she and I have both sort of seen within our communities. And without any further ado, dun, dun, dun.
Voila. Like, what's up? Yeah, let me see. How do I do it?
Let's just vote for the rest of this.
My glasses aren't like lime green, but
oh, those glasses are cool. I like the boxiness of them.
Yeah, I have this round face, so I got to square it off a little bit.
Okay, so Zoe, you're Chiriga. I mean, I know it's Chiriga, but I get it. Like, tell me about you fully dropped that. Like, I noticed here. So talk to me about that.
Ooh, don't tell my mom that I dropped that. So Chiriga, and even she corrects me on the pronunciation of my own name. So I give it to everybody else. Chiriga is my birth name. And then Zoe comes from doing spoken word in San Jose. If you're familiar with the Bay Area, they used to have this burrito joint called Iguanas. And so Zone of Energy is the nickname that was given to me when I was doing spoken word. And so that's kind of the story. But if my mom is listening, it's Chiriga.
Okay. Chiriga, and it's not Chiriga because it's spelled with a C.
Yeah, Chiriga. Yeah, it's like if you break it down, Shareega. Chiriga.
Chiriga. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And then
Zoe, not Zoe.
Not Zoe. Zoe, I feel like, I love Zoe. I love the name. Zone of Energy actually being an acronym, and I pronounce it Zoe, kind of like the Haitian Zoe. That terminology.
Way cooler. Both names way cooler than I could ever pronounce them on my own.
Look, yes, thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, your journey has been really inspiring to hear about, and I want you to share that with everyone. So I know that you've been in the Army for 12 years. You transformed from coming out of the Army into being a very inspirational Black female entrepreneur, which, by the way, is the fastest growing community of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's definitely.
Yeah, and now you've co-pivoted, I like to sort of say, into taking everything that you know and all of your experiences and activating other organizations from the inside out as a D&I consultant, which is amazing.
Yeah. It's interesting because all these things that are happening in your life, you don't always realize how they're all connected. And so I remember, 12 years in the military. In that time, I went to an equal opportunity course to become a representative for my unit. And so that meant that I was working with the EEO office to take on some of these different cases that were coming through our unit and talking to the different soldiers and also teaching workshops. And I still have some of the activity paperwork that we did in that class. And then fast forward, to 2014, this is after 2 tours in Iraq, moving around to several locations and all these different jobs. I went from being a combat photographer to a surgical assistant, and then finally within IT, and so different MOSs, different specialties allowed me to cross train a lot, and that's super important. So
how is it that you can go, like, how did they go from, what was it? You were a photographer, assistant in IT? Like, that's like, there's no skill crossing there. Like, where's the logic?
You'll be surprised. It all starts with the ASVAB, right? So you score high on your ASVAB, and that opens you up.
I don't know what that is.
It's it's like an assessment test, like the SATs. I won't even try, like, assessment of your vocational abilities. And,
it's a test.
Or ASVAB, right? So you score high on that, and basically you could do any job. But my transition was this. I was in the reserves, a liaison between the Army and host country. So you get that training, basically how to have effective communication, a skill set that's needed for event planners, right? One. And so I was doing that for a unit, but you get voluntold to do a lot of stuff. So I picked up, and I was in Mountain View at the time. I picked up a camera, and I'm taking pictures, and my one of the officers says, "Wow, you're really good at taking pictures. Would you consider becoming active duty as a photographer?" And I was like, "That job doesn't exist in the Army." And he was like, "I bet you it does. If I can get you that job, would you take it?" And I was like, "Sure." Lo and behold, September 11th happens, 9/11 happens. And so I was like, sign me up to go active duty. I go to training combat photographer, go to Iraq as a combat photographer, had the unfortunate experience of having, a fellow soldier die in Iraq, and I couldn't save them, and that is a traumatic experience. But me, I'm solution oriented. So I'm like, okay, I want to learn how to better save a life. And so I got out of the military, had my son, and when I got the opportunity to go back in, I was like a surgical assistant. I can, amputate legs, and I can stop bleeding, and I can do this. And I learned so much more. What happens in the hospital, though, you're doing that job, and it's upward mobility is difficult because they want more surgical assistants and less people who are behind the paperwork. So then upward mobility was in IT, because IT was just taking hold at that time. And that was like 2009, where cybersecurity became a thing. So I switched over, went to training in Augusta, get into IT, and landed at the NSA because I learned quickly, as proven by my ASVAB, and did IT, got out, and just had all this plethora of experiences. And I mean, each job provided so much insight into what connected them all was logistics and operations. I knew how to work with teams. I knew how to, be mission driven or mission oriented. And so all of those skills overlapped into events. And a lot of people didn't understand the connection, but there are some certain things that you need, especially emotional intelligence more than IQ, to be effective as an event planner. And I look back, and I had all those things, got my master's in hospitality recreation, jumped into MPI, and was like, I want to learn this now. So amazing. Yeah, it's a quick summary of, 40 years.
But then talk about the business that you started, and like, what was that like, becoming like an entrepreneur in the event space?
One, entrepreneurship for anybody just starting out knows that it's you're building a plane as you're trying to fly it, right? And so that was me. Come out, and I started LB Alliance. It's Lotus Baseline Alliance. It's a long, story behind the name. But what it spoke to was, how can I collaborate and form alliances with companies to get their name out there? So if they're a DJ, if they're a chef, how can I support their infrastructure and also connect them to someone who will procure them for a large event like Grand Prix or, some Super Bowl or whatever large event that's going on? And how could I get those corporate planners in the spaces of like Dreamforce and Oracle Day to reach into the community and use local vendors and suppliers, and especially Black owned, because that's what I focused on. When you look at the numbers, according to Data USA, the whole, event industry is represented by over now 86% Europeans, people of European descent, AKA white. And the other
86, I mean, like,
yeah,
that's not what it's like at Happily, like in our network. So I'm like, what? Like, that's a crazy high number. But it is what I see when I go to events, like, and look behind the scenes. It is, yeah.
And so this, you're looking at some of these organizations, and I think what's really important for people to realize is how important history or the timeline matters. Most of these associations that stand up are when event planning become big, you have secretaries that are tasked with doing events. So then the associations start in like 1970s. And so just 4 years earlier, because MPI like started in 1972. So just 4 years earlier, you have the civil rights movement. So the country is still, adjusting to, what needs to happen, what should have happened since the onset of the country. But here we are, they're still very, very segregated, right, in different places. And those opportunities that are available to some people aren't available to others. So you fast forward to now, and that number seems outlandish to people, but people who have had the opportunity to excel to those leadership roles or build their businesses to a national level have been exposed a lot earlier or are considered the norm, right? And so when you are, a Black professional in the corporate space and you're trying to climb the ladder, there's a lot more challenges, and opportunities to prove your skill or to show how valuable you are. And so now here we are actually addressing it. Like, there are some very talented people who have gotten looked over for opportunities. And LB Alliance I wanted to reduce those barriers to entry. Also discuss with different clients, like the importance of having representation in leadership. And then most importantly, what I see in the MICE industry, what we call meetings, incentives, conventions, exhibitions, and even, local events that happen, is there's a lack of supplier diversity. And so when you're looking at the different venues and the different professionals as speakers and panelists or chefs and DJs, the businesses, there isn't diversity amongst those businesses that we go to. Like, you'll go into a city and they'll use national brands. A national company will come in, they will get paid, and they'll take their money right on out. But if you bring local businesses and freelancers like Happily does into those events, they make money, they spend it locally, and then it does something what I call tough and urban sustainability, strengthen that local community because they're a part of these events that are happening and not excluded from them. So yeah, that was my whole mission and passion with LB Alliance. Somebody would call me for resources and I would run to a DJ and say, hey, let's get your invoice together. Do you have a website? Da, 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 da. But there were other barriers that they're experiencing because they're also building the plane as they're trying to fly it. And I'm like, okay, I need 5 DJs, to be at this, at the Moscone Center in 2 days. Let's get it together. And they're like, we need bands, we need this, we need that, and so it's trying to pull all these resources together and collaborate so that we would be on the stage to be like, you looked us over, you underestimated us, but here we are. Now
it's always like that too, right?
Yeah. Everybody loves us. And this food tastes so good. And and it's not just soul food. This is a chef who's able to fuse. And I say this a lot, like, when I talk to so many different people and they tell me their challenges, I'm crying inside because it also gives me a perspective. I talk to a chef. If you've never heard about the Black Wine and Food Experience that happens in Oakland, Chef Mimi, and we talk about this all the time. She's really good at making collard greens and cornbread, but that's not all she makes. She makes an array of different dishes. Same thing with Chris Evans. I think Chris actually. An array of dishes. And so it's also challenging people's biases, saying just when you need somebody to do an event for Black History Month or some other ethnic holiday, that's, you're pigeonholing that person. So how can we get them to expand their mind and saying, just like I want French cuisine or Japanese or this, all kinds of chefs can do that. It just depends on their background and their schooling and so forth and their desire to learn. So yeah, I really wanted to change the game in a way that gets people to think outside of their affinity bias and stop looking at this directory. Of course, anybody who's in that directory are people who have had access to joining the association, and it trickles on down. And so we need to do better. That's the bottom line. And,
well, yeah, I mean, actually, like last week, one of our freelancers at Center Brain Trust, and then one of our clients was interviewed in Ad Week. They had like a week of talking about diversity in the marketing space, and both of them, Annika Grant, and then Yadi and Shannon Simpson at Verb, right? So they were
names because I read about them all the time.
they're all amazing women, and also just badasses. And they both, they were in separate articles, and they both mentioned how they, because they're black agencies, experimental agencies, they notice that they always get the same RFPs as other black agencies. And I think, you know, it was just, I think maybe Yachty or Shannon was like, we have to do more than check the box. And like, just exactly like what you're saying, to underscore that is like, just because you're black or you're like any other like ethnicity doesn't mean that's the only thing that you know how to do, especially in America. Actually, this is like the whole idea of America is this melting pot. It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, I changed that saying around too. You know, I won't use expletives on your live, but instead of, you know, going with the melting pot theme, I'm like, yeah, you know, your melting pot, that's great, but I'm the spice that gives it flavor. You know, like add to it, right? Like understand that I'm gonna add flavor.
But you're like a spice blend, like, like
we all are. When people are able to be their authentic selves, and that's what we're talking about. When I get to show up my whole self and I don't have to code switch, I don't have to adhere to somebody's you know, phenotype or what they think is a successful image. When I don't have to do that and I can be me, y'all ain't ready. And that's how it is. A lot of people want to show up their whole selves, have opportunities to excel. And really we see how silly it is to define somebody by the color of their skin, right? Like, so that's what we're talking about now.
I love it. Okay. So we want to like extract the wisdom from you on D&I consultants. That's your thing. Talk to me, like, what advice would you give for a recruiter inside of a large organization?
One, okay. That's like, did I get us some time? You can't do it alone. They can't do it alone. You know, it literally is internal partnership with their C-suite and to meet some objectives, right? Like, and that comes with, as a recruiter, having to know what your current workforce looks like. And that first begins with acknowledgement. So I would say, one, you have to acknowledge what the landscape of what the workforce looks like. That, wow, if I look at the C-suite, if I look at these senior level positions, it is 80%, 6% white, or it is, you know, men, or it is, you know, this group. And so if I acknowledge that and I do an actual assessment, not just by me seeing it, not just by what people say, but, you know, do an assessment, a survey of that demographic is number two, is to identify what that demographic looks like. So you can set some benchmarks. You identify, okay, its current number is at 14%. And by year two or by next year, I want to increase that to 16% or 20%. You set a goal. And then now you have to identify, what am I going to do to make my organization or this place inclusive? Because a lot of people are working backwards. They're like, okay, we want diversity. Hire this person, hire that person. And they get into the environment and it's not inclusive and there is no upward mobility. So the effort becomes stagnant because you have a high attrition rate. So this recruiter has to work with the C-level suite, first to acknowledge as a company where you are, assess it and make it public, and then identify what you need to do internal to those programs. And then as you begin to hire, it has to be intentional. You cannot post something on LinkedIn and say, hey, we're hiring, and just expect people who have never seen your company as diverse or making any true effort. You have to be intentional. Go to the HBCUs, go to the neighborhoods, go to the community centers, work with existing organizations who are doing this effort. You know, I see in the tech space, you know, there's a lot of hiring companies that work with Street Code Academy out of East Palo Alto. And, you know, that's an existing organization who's working with the local kids to train them up, and they work directly with them to make sure that there is a pipeline, right? And so recruiters have to be involved in their local community. You can't be sitting up on some, you know, high mountain and expect people to come to you. You have to go to the people. And so that's the foundation of the recommendations I make for a recruiter. And you start doing that.
Start at the top and go to the bottom, right? Like, you know,
you have to make it's a commitment to action, right? And the C-suite has to show up. The recruiter has to be supported. The people have to see you. And then when people are inside your organization, you have to foster a community and a culture of belonging. So That's how you make it sustainable. That's how you toughen urban sustainability.
As a consultant, like, you know, are you structuring things like into programs, like, and is there a minimum amount of time that people have to work with you in order for you to actually help them, or how does that work?
So you said CoPivot, right? I'm literally pivoting right now. This is so new to me. Like, I literally have been calling up to mentors and saying, like, I have no business background. That's one thing I didn't learn in the Army. I have a lot of different skills, but business school is not one of them. So I'm Googling and learning how to build out this personal brand. And I've sat with some different coaches and, you know, trying to build those relationships. But, you know, how I work is how I desire to work in this space of consultancy. Like right now, being the co-chair with D&I committee for NPI. You know, we sit with the committee of like 20 people from all different chapters throughout the organization. And we discuss these different areas, and we've come down to pillars, right? The three main areas we want to focus on, and we also have a parking lot area. Then we make those recommendations to the staff, up to the international board. So there's a process. But being the person that I am, since this is my full-time gig, my full-time passion, I'm like, okay, this process that you're using right now is not effective. So we need to actually restructure it all, you know? And so NPI has given me the opportunity, starting with the Northern California chapter to now being at global, upward mobility, right? See that? Has given me the opportunity to test this all out, in a sense, to really, you know, getting my certified diversity practitioner certificate through the National Diversity Council really was me finding my voice. I knew what was wrong, but just being Black, I was mad about everything, right? Like, oh, I don't know how to fully express that and tell you about Black excellence and tell you what it is to be anti-racist and so forth and so on. But now that I have the certificate and I do the research and I'm doing the work, learning to say yes, and, you know, now I'm able to consult. And so now I'm trying to bring all of that together, package it, and figure out what it looks like. And so,
cool.
Yeah, when I look at these roles, I could do them all. I could do circles around most of these roles. I just have to be given the opportunity.
Yep, totally. And anytime, like, sidebar, like, totally happy to help you, like, model and package. And like, that's like one of my like little mini superpowers. So let's do that. Okay, what is advice that you would give to someone that's in the same situation as you? So you're a consultant, but are you a consultant that's looking for a job? Or are you a consultant that's looking to start another business, you know? Or are you a consultant, you're like, I'm going to be a consultant forever, which I always think is like the best life, but if you can do it.
Everybody recommends that, you know, just be independent, work for myself. I actually want the experience of working in the corporate setting. I think I'm so curious that, you know, doing entrepreneurship for 4 years, I've made some money. I traveled, I got a lot of opportunities. And so it was a great experience. But just like the pattern in the military, I want corporate background. I want to just be in it, not to say I can be in it forever. And I also think the new model in corporate space is entrepreneurship, you know, where you're independently operating and fulfilling a mission. And so having that support system is super important to me. And I just want to experience it for a good, you know, I have a 15-year-old son, and I really want to spend some time with him as he gets into college and stuff like that, and find that balance between my personal life and professional life. So I think being in the corporate space would allow me to have more support. You know, we'll see. It's learning.
Yep. And like, actually there's like almost another sidebar, but Bonnie Nice, if you're watching this from the NMSDC, is one of our clients, and she's also like been like a friend and a mentor for a long time. And National Minority Supplier Development Council, they've got a lot of relationships with like amazing the way that they work with like minorities and corporations is pretty sophisticated. So I'm going to hook you two up. And Bonnie, if you're watching this, like, hit me up about Zoe. But yeah. Sorry, I had to like, I'm all like recording it. Yeah, wonderful. So I think that, you know, so it's been such a pleasure to chat with you, and you've given, I think, a lot of me, and I'm sure everybody like listening, like a lot of inspiration and hope and sort of, I don't know, like just your experience and you as a being, like it's just you're a universe of like wonderful, wonderful, like I don't know, it's a portions. I don't know. I'm not good with the cliches, but
it's, even when we were talking about like with being an event producer, like I love this because I get to learn so much, like meeting you and, we've met virtually, but learning what your experiences is like I told you, when I first came upon Happily, I'm like, oh my goodness, it exists. She understands, she gets it, how did you do it and how can I support? Even then, when I'm having my own thing, I'm a person, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. So I'm like, how can I support you? How can I learn? And then in the event space, same thing. You get to meet all these people, from musicians to chefs to whoever's building a new app, and you get to pick their brain right there. It's just a very intriguing space to be in, because it's like, if you want to learn, you can, and these aren't just clients that I work with. I've worked with so many different event professionals. I'm like literally learning on the spot from them, and they're so willing to talk to you. So yeah, I just attribute to, just being open and yeah, it's been a fun ride, and it's just starting,
Yeah, no, we do this thing now. I just started this thing called Happily Hours, and it's actually designed to change the way and support, actually, like help internal culture folks like actually be able to program very quickly, program quickly, affordably, woke, interesting experiences for their happy hours. Right now, they're just like so inundated, and we do something where they can like sort of choose an artist or a wellness leader or a musician. And then we strap on a producer that will just do all the logistics, and they just invite people in. I want to tell you more about that too, because maybe you can help me build out that program, which could be like
Twitter
the alliance thing is like really interesting.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Twitter Blackbirds did an amazing job. Oh my goodness, I went to an event in February, a live event, and they did a wellness event. Blew my mind. Like,
oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, so I can put you in contact. My cousin Aubrey, and he works there, and some friends that are there. And that event was a game changer. It was nice to see the wellness element brought in and done so well. Different vendors, different speakers, different activities, and I was like, we're in a corporate setting, and they got this right. Who did this? Who put this on? I'm so nosy. I'm like, who are you? What can I support you with? And how can
the Twitter team is pretty cool. Actually, like I started this thing called The Margin with my friends Lisa Lee and Janet Ikpa. And Janet was head of D&I programs, I think, at Twitter. But I also was like recently at CES, and then like I somehow met this guy at Twitter at this diversity event that we were doing for the ad space, and he was in Cirque du Soleil, and he was LGBTQ plus, and like and he was amazing. And then he was like, come to our party tonight. And I got to watch Snoop Dogg, and it was like, I was so excited. I was so excited. I was like, Twitter's the best. I loved it.
In Vegas?
In Vegas, yeah.
I was working that one.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yep.
Did you see me like in my yellow glasses at the front row? Oh my God! I told you a story about what happened.
The Snoop Dogg event. I was at CES, and I was working for another company out of Boston. Yeah. So I was at CES, but I didn't go to any events. By the end of the night, I was done, exhausted.
I actually it's really funny, but I've never seen Snoop Dogg live, which is really weird because like in another lifetime I went on tour with Dr. Dre during 2001. I did. That's a whole we'll have to talk, and I love telling those stories. But anyways, okay, wait. So I do play this game, and we can go through it super quickly. And so we're gonna end it out. We're at that mark. But here's the thing. I looked up I made it up, and it's called Good Name, Bad Search. And what I did is I went on LinkedIn, and then I typed in. Well, I mean, at the time I thought it was Zoe Moore, and probably all these people are called Zoe. They're not Zoe. Zone of Energy Zoe.
Yeah.
But there's 3 Zoe Moores that I lifted up, and you have to guess whose job aligns up with their name.
Okay. I'm feeling it. I'm trying. Okay.
You'll see. I know everyone's like, what are you doing? But it's just fun. Okay, so then there's 3 different jobs here. One is an associate social producer, one is a chief digital officer, and one is a PR intern.
Okay.
And so your job is to guess who is who. So let's go through and let me show you the other.
This might be a bias test.
I feel like it totally is. Like some people like really nail it, and then it's, I don't know. I think it's nice to see it. Okay, so.
I have to guess off top without seeing everybody?
No, I'm going to just like start and say like person A.
Person A.
And here again are the options.
Okay. Associate social producer.
Okay. And then person B.
Intern, public relations intern.
Okay. And then person C.
Oh, I got it wrong. Okay, no. Well, I mean, I can only say the last option, chief digital
officer.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just say that you're really good at this because you got every single person right, which is so awesome. And I think that you're like maybe the first, you might be the second person that's done that. That just like goes to like, yes, you are like a recruiting master.
Well, it's just you get to, behavioral science is my next pursuit for my doctorate. So getting to know people is so fun. Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming and having a public conversation. We were like, hey, let's like connect. And I was like, let's do it publicly.
People all in the business. No, I love it. Yeah, welcome to my life. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I wish you all the best and congratulations again on the co-chair, for MPI. That's a huge deal. That's a really big organization and they are very lucky to have you.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I look forward to more opportunities to do more. Let's blossom together. Oh, and then there's a quote that I always say, when inclusion is the behavior, diversity will be the result.
Ooh, when inclusion is the behavior, diversity is, yeah, absolutely.
There you go. Bam.
Love it. Okay, everybody go look up Chiriga with a C. Zoe Moore up on LinkedIn, connect with her. Thank you again so much.
Read the article on meetings today with me and Gregory DeShills from PHL Diversity. Yeah, meetings today.
Okay, I'll find it and then I'll comment it in there so that people can link that. And if there's anything else, we can do to support, just let us know.
All right, thank you so much. Keep up the good work.
You too.
Bye.
Okay, don't you just love her? You're just like obsessed with her? Like, yeah. I hope you had as much fun with that conversation as I did. And I don't know, could you even tell like in the beginning of the video, it's like, hey, like blah, blah, blah. And now I'm like super energized. Like, I just love like my friends and like meeting and having conversations with them. It gives me so much joy. Next week, I am going to be speaking with, oh my gosh, Hedda, who is the founder and the strategist of the House of the Gypsies. She's like deep in the Gypsy code and the Gypsy life and lifestyle and values and everything is just something that she's introduced me to and is just beautiful and so interesting. So I'm really excited because I'm going to be talking with Hedda next week. So please join us for that. Please also join us for Happily Hour tomorrow, Thursday at 5 p.m. PST. We are going to have wellness expert Leo Rising come in and do a breathwork exercise that actually unlocks active listening. It's something that he's invented and it's amazing. And we're also going to be having a live performance with Bryn Elliott, who is this like pop singer with a degree from Harvard in philosophy. Amazing young woman and beautiful performer. So that's going to be tomorrow. Please join us. We'd love to see you. And in any case, talk to you next week. Or like I will be attacking your LinkedIn live feed Wednesday, 2 p.m. PST.